Welcome back. On to the first of the 3 side missions following Stones River. Today, we deal with Blackwater Heights. I'll save the pre and post screenshots of my army and just boil it down. All brigades have been replenished to nominal numbers, and the injured officers have been replaced while they recover. As for First Corps troops, all of the units that had earned their 3rd star were given their 3rd perk and moved to 4th Corps. The melee team took the melee perk, and every other infantry took the spotting perk. I then replaced them in 1st Corps with 2 and 1 star cannon batteries, as this is a great time to train some cannons. And, as you may have noticed over here, Cannon Commander Daniel Hill is back in play. And one other thing I sort of just noticed, ever since Shiloh I have mentioned the trick to get a 2nd supply wagon into a corps. I wasn't aware it didn't stop there, as a quick look shows that I now have 3 supply wagons in 1st Corps. While this does seem like something I should keep doing, as more supply is never a bad thing, more supply wagons can be, as any stage that has part of your force arrive as unchosen reinforcements will often have a brigade limit as to how many show up, and supply wagons count towards that total. The good news is that shouldn't affect 1st Corps too much, since 1st Corps is almost always in a deploy to field immediately status. So I just need to make sure I don't retreat any more supply wagons in multi-day stages for the rest of the campaign. So let's get to the stage. We need supplies for our army stationed near Chancellorsville, and you've been assigned to a foraging expedition at the southeast of Virginia and east of North Carolina. Your order is to advance into the area and gather as many supplies as possible. The Federals have deployed their local garrisons on the Blackwater Heights. You cannot allow this threat to your rear, so you must attack and crush the Yankees. General, the Federals have a different opinion about your expedition and seem determined to halt your advance at Blackwater Heights. You have no other choice than to attack the Yankees and clear the heights. So, what's up for today's stage? For starters, there is an impassable river here with only a single crossing point, and the little yellow physical reality defining map borders aren't going to let us go around it. And the Union know this, which is why, other than 3 skirmishers around this area, everything else they have is guarding the bridge. I guess I can't complain too loudly. While it would be nice if I could simply go around, I've been using the map border so many times to my advantage, I was due for a stage that it gets used against me instead. As for the Union, they will have 5 infantry in defensive positions here. The forward 2 are actually pretty terrible. The back 3 are somewhat better, I believe, but I couldn't get a screenshot showing their stats. They have 3 floating infantry that they will use to try and plug gaps or occupy the defensive points should the initial defenders get chased off. They also have 3 huge cannon batteries, one here, and the 3rd can be found just about anywhere in here. And each of those 3 cannons has a huge cavalry squad that will usually be nearby guarding it. For spotting, there will be a vision point here that will essentially be able to see all the way out to this, meaning the only real stealth we will have this stage is in the woods to the right or small skirmish groups. Our own vision point will be here, but it is woefully inadequate, as between its smaller range and all those trees on the other side, the only thing it will be able to reliably see is this unit. And according to the game timer, we only have 3 hours to breach the bridge and take the point. Thankfully, that's a lie, as like many times in the past, the stage doesn't end when the battle timer does. We will have all the way to 2100 hours to get the objective. Which means that we are going up against a mostly immobile enemy army with a huge time limit. Time to roll out the cannons. My 20 brigades this map will be the sniper team, 4 infantry, 2 of which are snipers, 1 is the scurbs, and the 142 scrubs, which are the ones with the lowest skilled officer, will be the 4th, and 12 cannon batteries, which leaves 3 slots, which I will use to bring out the cavalry for once. In a map with very little open plains, in the combat area, and guarded by a choke point. Don't worry, it's not as stupid as it sounds. This is going to be a bit long, especially for a side mission, so feel free to look at the YouTube playback bar and jump ahead to the action portion of this if you don't like my voice. Or watch this on mute. Step 1 is simple. Remove the skirmishers from this side of the river. This is done by having our infantry move quickly alongside the tree line, and then branch out into the woods to close off any hope of them fleeing over the bridge. Once said route is closed, the infantry will push in, while the 3 cavalry teams storm up the right side of the map. The enemy skirmish squads are fairly small, so even though trees aren't the best terrain for horses, our 3 mid-sized squads will easily smash any skirmish team they run into. Once this side is ours, then we split up the groups. The cavalry teams will slide back and wait for a bit. The 2 sniper infantry teams will take up spots here. This one will be just out of range of the enemy vision point, and their entire job this map will be to, we'll say, convince any enemy force that tries to cross the bridge that that's a bad idea. The other sniper team, armed with the good-ranged CS Richmonds, will sit in the woods here. While it's a very narrow band of pixels to find, there is a position where they can stay completely in the woods and have the very tip of their firing arc be just barely in range of the enemy wall defenders. You'll see where that is as the video plays back if you need a visual reference. In addition to being able to hit the enemy position, they are also able to take just a couple steps to also fire at anyone who dares cross the bridge. As for the 2 scrub infantry, the scurbs will sit in the woods at the river's edge here, where they will be engaging the enemy defenders while also being closer to them than the sniper infantry, so as to direct the enemy fire away from our specialist team. They will also, as needed, split off a skirmish squad to stand around this point, and when the enemy abandons their front line, will sneak across the river to stand in spots around here to get additional spotting info. The other scrub squad will sit here, well inside of enemy spotting range. But to avert direct fire, they will also be breaking off a skirmish team of their own to sit here, which should get the skirmish squad spotted. As long as there is a skirmish squad here that the enemy can see, then that should be what attracts any enemy cannon fire. Be sure to keep an eye on it. If necessary due to morale or manpower, reform it with the main force, and split off a fresh scrub skirmish squad. In addition to attracting fire, they might also spot an enemy unit or 3 on the other side of the river, which will prove useful. Our scout snipers will be bouncing back and forth between 2 spots. One is right at the tree's edge here, and the other is at the waterline here. In both of these positions, they will be able to both spot and shoot at an enemy position without being spotted in return. Move them wherever their sniper rifles are most useful at any given time. One of our 3 supply wagons will support the left side, and one will be on the right. The third wagon will sit back, eventually moving up to replace whichever one empties out first, as well as being the one that eventually moves forward during the end of stage maneuvers. And our general will be sitting on the hill here, distracting the enemy long-range cannon fire while the other units are getting into place. Which just leaves our cannons. All of the long-range batteries will take up positions on the left, back far enough that they shouldn't ever be taking direct bombardment. Their first priority is to counter-battery any cannon that gets spotted at any time. If no cannons are spotted, their second priority is to bombard this spot to chase the defenders off. Their third priority will be to just keep firing at anything. On the right, the close-range batteries will be right behind the 2 infantry squads, and the mid-range cannons will be right behind that. Just like the long-range batteries, their number 1 priority is to counter-battery enemy cannons. However, unlike the long-range batteries, that may very well happen like never, so don't waste too much time trying to min-max anti-cannon work on this side. Their other primary objective is to bombard and chase off the infantry in both of these 2 spots. Once either of the frontline Union troops retreats, it will start a game of infantry ping-pong. Eventually, a Union infantry team will try and run forward to reoccupy the point, but when they do, they will immediately get blasted by whole divisions of our guys, causing them to just rout and run immediately, having lost hundreds of men for nothing. This happening over and over again is how we will be spending much of the first half of the timer. Eventually, however, we will want to get on the other side, and this is where our cavalry comes in. You will need to time it carefully, as well as make sure everyone is topped off in supply before starting. But the idea is that, in a moment when all three of these defenders have fled their posts, we will send the scout snipers, the skirmish team, and the 3 cavalry squads across the bridge, have them hug the river on the right, and end up heading into the woods over in this area. Once there, the scout snipers will stay here, providing spotting for the right side cannons while also firing at targets of opportunity, and the other 4 units will swing to the map's north edge and then around to the left. The skirmish team will try and sneak as far as it can down the trees on the left to get whatever spotting it can, and the cavalry teams will sit at the north center. Their job is, based on the spotting provided by the other 2 squads, to determine any point that they can get in behind the enemy to some undefended cannons. If your long-range batteries have been doing well, there's a good chance some of the enemy cannons will have routed north to get away from the bombardment, and as such left their lines of defense far enough to be targeted by a horse raid. Should the enemy ever run out of cannons entirely, then your own guns can push up to get closer ranged fire. Once the Union has been sufficiently hammered that they are in a constant state of routing, that's when we cross. 1 infantry will use the house here as a defensive bulwark, while the other 3 sweep around to make sure to close off the eastern half of the map from the enemy. Our cavalry and snipers will go all the way around north, not so much to complete the circle as to just let themselves get spotted so that the Union know they're there, and the entirety of our artillery corps will come across the bridge and take up positions in this area. At that point, it's just deciding how long to soften them up and when to charge in to finish the stage. With the skirmishers gone, all my units in position, and the first round of infantry ping pong well underway, I'm going to swap to fast forward now. For some reason, some of my cannons aren't auto-firing at whatever comes into range. Not sure if this is a bug or me missing something, but in your own game, keep an eye on your cannons. The whole point of this strategy is that you are conducting a long and overwhelming barrage. If your cannons aren't firing, then the barrage is just semi-whelming, and that's just not what the goal is. Alright, one of their 3 batteries have been shattered. I just spent so much time trying to pixel perfect move my batteries that I just lost Cannon Commander Daniel Hill. Pro tip, in your own game, don't do that. I mean, it's not going to lose me the stage or anything, and Hill will be back when we finish this map, but still, that's some cannon buffs I just lost for the rest of the stage. Of course, I lost Daniel because the Union cannons can see us where we can't see them. I think I'm going to take a calculated risk here and see if I can't get eyes on that battery by sending the skirmishers around the left side. As it turns out, my cavalry were unnecessary to this map. The last of the enemy cannons have just been removed by counter-battery fire. At least they'll get some stamina training, I guess. It's kind of telling that the Union are basically in total collapse, despite having an almost 3-2 advantage in men. This is a good demonstration of one of the fundamental aspects to offensive maneuvers. When trying to take a position, a good way to do it is to pick a single aspect of the fight and overload it so heavily that even if the defenders do have the appropriate counter, they simply won't have enough of it. The defenders had a strong defensive choke point, backed up by some artillery from cover, but we brought, like, all the artillery and completely overwhelmed them. Or, to put another way, just one single advantage, in this case volume of support weapons, was enough to defeat an army that had basically every other advantage the map had to offer. I suspect one of the next 2 maps will see me doing the same basic strategy, though via an avenue other than artillery. Tune in later to see exactly what. In any event, the remaining Union forces are basically done. Let's have the cannons soften them up some more to reduce our own side's casualties, and then give the cavalry at least something to do this stage. Specifically, ending it. Half as many men brought, resulting in 20-1 casualties, all thanks to a single strategic decision. The largely unused cavalry is the only reason I didn't perfect the leaderboard here, but that's fine. A check of the minimal casualties on our side shows that one of the cannon batteries was a single man away from losing a gun. That was close, and I think it's using the expensive 24-pounders too. 5 promotions, including all the lieutenant colonels having dropped the lieutenant. Nothing too special in the gear screen. The number of 3-star brigades continues to rise. I imagine I'll stop using First Corps for the side missions by the time of the next grand battle. But for now, it's a point into medicine, a save, and an exit. Catch you next stage.